Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to another Getting Started in Beekeeping for 2017. So today we're back at the allotment apiary for another inspection. This is another 7 days on from the last inspection, and it's going to be just another general inspection. However, this time if we spot the queen, I plan on marking her, and I'll show you how I would mark my queens. There are lots of other little gadgets that you can use to mark your queen, but I tend to just pick the queen up and mark her, and it's a simple, straightforward process. So if we do see her, we'll show you how to do that. I've had several questions on the comments on previous videos asking when is the right time to put a super on to a new hive. For me, the best time is when the bees have fully drawn the brood box and you've got a nectar flow that's about to start or has just started. The idea being that you get the bees to draw fully across the brood box so that all of the frames are drawn and are being worked before you put the super on. And the reason for that is that if you put the super on too early, what can happen is that the bees will go straight up the middle of the super and ignore the frames at the side of the brood box. And so when you take that super off, you're left with a brood box that only has maybe 7 or 8 frames that have been drawn instead of the full complement of 11 frames. So it's important to get the brood box fully drawn before we then place the queen excluder and the super on top. And we'll take a look at the colony today and see how they're doing. We did top up the sugar syrup midweek. The bees have been really using the sugar syrup, so I anticipate that they've been drawing more of the frames, so it'll be good to see how we get on with those. And also, I've had a couple of comments about queen cells. Just remember that the bees are going to be creating what I call rudimentary queen cups, which are the beginnings of queen cells, but they don't have any eggs or larvae in, so I wouldn't class those as a queen cell. And remember to just be sure that you're not looking at drone cells instead of queen cells, because drone cells are quite bigger than worker cells, and it's sometimes easy for the beginner to panic and think that the drone cell is actually a queen cell. So just familiarise yourself with the difference between queen cells, drone cells and worker cells, and we've got several videos that you can take a look at that will show you those. So let's get the smoker well and truly lit and we'll get into the colony and see how they're doing this week. Okay, so again we've got some mould developing, but they've taken almost 3/4 of a feeder in about 2 or 3 days, so they're going at it fairly well. So we'll take the feeder off. Okay, so we'll have a look at all the frames again, and this is one of the outside frames, and they've now started to work on this one. Oh, and immediately I've found the queen, so we'll have a go at marking our queen. So the queen is here. I'll just point out the queen. Okay, so the process for marking the queen is preparation really. So I've got a marker pen, and this year the colour is yellow. And you can remember the different colours by saying, will you raise good bees? So white for will, and U is yellow, red for raise, green for good, and blue for bees. So we get our marker ready and just loosen the tip so that we can just pick the pen out. And I always like to just take the pen out and just make 1 or 2 marks on my glove just to make sure that the pen is not going to flood. So the bees are lovely and calm, and what we want to do is to just move the queen so that she's walking away from me so that I can pick her up by the wings. So now she's moving away, I can just come in, pick her up by the wings, and then transfer her onto my index finger of the other hand, and then I can hold her by the legs quite carefully but firmly, and then I can just put the yellow mark on her thorax, and then we can just release her back down onto the comb, and then we've got our queen with the yellow dots on it. And she's now going to be very visible to us once the colony builds up to full strength and we've got thousands of bees running around. We should be able to see her quite easily. And on this frame she's laid lots of eggs, so we'll move in to the next frame. And remember that this is frame number 5. I'm working from the other direction this week. And frame number 5 is the one that is coming out of the frame where the foundation had slipped, and we're moving this one to the outside. So we'll have a look to see what's happening with this frame. So again, the queen is working really well with this one. We've still got lots of brood waiting to emerge. So what we'll do is, again, we'll move this another frame out, and slide that one into this position and moving it ever closer to the outside of the brood box. And then we'll bring this frame up tight to it, again giving us plenty of room in here to be able to inspect and not drag the frame up and roll the bees. Hive tool in, easing the frame away, trying to be as gentle with the bees as possible and just lifting it nice and controlled and gently. Again, we've got a nice frame of eggs and open brood, so brood in all stages, and this is one of the frames that they've drawn over the last few weeks, and the bees are being really calm on the comb, and it's nice to see, and it's ideal for a beginner beekeeper when the bees are this calm. Okay, so we're now into the original frames again, so this is number 4. Nice and gently. Again, we've got lots of young bees that have emerged. Patch of capped brood here, and a little section of open brood, and then here we've got a rudimentary queen cup just in the corner here. So I'm just going to open this up with my finger to just look inside, and there's nothing inside it, so that doesn't become a queen cell until there's something in it. So at the moment it's just a rudimentary queen cup, so there's nothing to worry about with that. And the queen's laid a few eggs in the middle there. If I just turn the frame round, I can show you that we've got 1 or 2 rudimentary queen cups on the other side. So we've got one down here, and again just use your finger to peel it back. Nothing in that one. And then we have one just here, which I'll just pull back. and again nothing in there. Remember to always put the frames back in the way round that you took them out, so that you don't get them with high spot against high spot and crushing bees. And then gently back in, and don't forget to use your smoker just to keep control of the bees, and then we move on. So I like to place my fingers on the frame before I open it, and then as I open the frame I know that I've already got a grip of the frame on this side, so I'm not going to place my fingers on any bees, and then when I come over to the other side I can ease it open and then just slide my fingers in and again gently lift the frame out. Another nice frame of brood and lots of young bees. And just have a look on the other side. Exactly the same on the other side, and that's looking really good. Gently back in. And if the weather where you are is a little bit changeable, you might find that the bees get a little bit more agitated than normal. They don't like thunderstorms, they don't like stormy, showery weather, so if you have got weather of that type, then just maybe stall or delay your inspection until the weather has cleared up, but don't delay longer than a week, because that will then give them the opportunity, if they're of a mind to swarm. And here we've got a bee doing a waggle dance, and you can see her waggling there. In fact, there's quite a few bees doing waggle dances here. I know that we've got some nectar and pollen available locally. Check the other side. And today's inspection for me was all about trying to find the queen to mark her so that we could demonstrate that, and really just looking for queen cells. So there'd been one or two reports from people on the comments that they'd discovered queen cells, so I thought it would be a good idea for us to just have a quick look through for queen cells. No, this is number one, frame number one. Lots of brood, lots of nice calm bees, no queen cells, and everything looks fine. And gently back in, making sure that you don't trap bees between the frames as you place the frame back in. And now we're into the new frames, so let's see how the girls have been doing in drawing out these frames. And they're doing a really good job with this. So they're storing lots of sugar syrup, they're storing lots of nectar. There are no eggs or brood on that frame, so we can place that one back in straight away. Okay, so on this side we don't have any real activity. They've started to draw the foundation at the top, but on the reverse side they're working really well and drawing that. So what we'll do with this one is we'll leave this frame turned round, and that will encourage bees to come onto the inside face and start working that. And we're almost at the end of the frames. This frame is not yet being worked, so I'll continue to feed the bees, I'll continue to top up their sugar syrup until they've drawn the outside frames, and once they've drawn the outside frames, then we'll consider putting a super on. So all that remains is to just tighten up all of the frames together by using my Hive tool, and we'll just squeeze all the frames back to the edge of the brood box. And then we can pop the crown board back on. Our temporary cover on here. And then the feeder can go back on the central area. In fact, it looks like the bees can still sneak out the edge there. So next time I come up, I'll just bring a piece of plywood and we'll pop a piece of plywood on there. And all that remains really is to clean out the feeder. So all of this mould that's growing around the edge, wash it out with soapy water, give it a rinse, and then we can top that up again. Pop the number back in, and then we're ready to pop the roof back on. So that's another successful inspection. I hope that where you're introducing bees that you're having a good time inspecting and enjoying your bees. It's a fantastic hobby, and hopefully your bees are nice and calm and not giving you any problems. We've marked the queen, which is great. We have got some plunger tools for marking queens, and perhaps in a week or two's time we'll get the plunger out and I'll show you how that works. By that time hopefully the bees will have pulled all the frames in the brood box, and we'll then be in a position where we can get the queen excluder and a super on, and then hopefully the summer sunshine will give us a nectar flow, and we should hopefully get a super of honey off them. Please do leave any comments or questions you've got in the section below, and don't forget we've got our Facebook group, which is Stuart's Beekeeping Basics, and you'd be very welcome to join us in that group. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, and you can catch up with all of the videos as we finish our post-production on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Norfolk Honey, and again I'll put all the information and links down in the description below. Next week we're going to have a break from inspecting at the apiary here, because we've just collected a swarm, and I wanted to show you how we collect a swarm and house it in a nuke box and then build it up so that we have an additional colony that we can utilise. And for any beginner beekeeper, if your bees swarm, it's really useful to know how to collect a swarm and to then build them up into another colony. The week after that we'll come back up to the apiary here, but it doesn't mean that we won't inspect here. We're going to keep up with the weekly inspections so that we know we've not got queen cells and that our colony's not going to swarm. So that's it for this week, and we'll catch up next week when we show you the swarm, but for now, thanks for watching.